These core values include our rule of law, the free flow of information, a relatively corruption-free society, and a fair and transparent regulatory regime. Now, of course, as of today, I must say this with a pinch of salt, especially when we are saying that Hong Kong is relatively corruption-free, because, as you have noted, Mr. President, there are a lot of scandals involving high-ranking government officials, even the ex-ICAC ex-commissioner. And our ranking on the Corruption Perception Index has been slipping for many years. And I do hope that the government can address these issues as quickly as possible. These core values have been built up with many years of hard work, and it would be a daunting task to keep these values intact. There cannot be any compromise on these core values, whether for short-term monetary gain or political expediency. Next, Mr. President, I would like to turn to talk about our regulatory regime. Our regulatory regime for financial market is a dynamic one. On the one hand, we want it to be fair and flexible in order to stimulate innovation. On the other hand, we would want it to give adequate protection to consumers and investors. And challenges on our regulatory regime comes in two ways. First, as we are a global citizen, there's an urge for us to adhere and keep up with international standards. And second, I'm more concerned about the attitude of the government. I have a feeling that the government is trying to copy any international model that comes in hand, or trying to adopt an one-size-fits-all regulatory model. Now, this attitude is quite harmful because it often gives rise to deep-rooted disagreement between stakeholders, mainly the market players, and the government, even during the very first consultation stage of any regulatory proposal. Now, the recent examples I can tell you, Mr. President, are on the regulatory reform of the Financial Reporting Council, the setting up of the Insurance Authority, etc. And also, as mentioned in yesterday's meeting here, there are quite a number of regulatory gaps and regulatory arbitrage which people can exploit. At the moment, at least I can identify two regulatory gaps which exist currently. One in the area of crowdfunding, company insolvency regime, and also, of course, my honorable friend Sin Chung Kai's talk about the regulatory of investment-linked insurance products. These are loopholes which, some of the more bold-minded, bankers or financial engineers will exploit. Mr. President, the third challenge we're facing is that there is a continuous demand, of course, for Hong Kong to be able to offer innovation so as to capture market share. Innovations in terms of new products, services, and functions. Now, of course, the government has been talking about the deepening of the Hong Kong dollar bond market, the offer of more Islamic financial products. But I must say, rather than just talking, we need more positive action from the government to give all these a push. I also agree that the government should take legislative changes to enable Hong Kong to house group treasury management companies. Now, however, I still have an eerie feeling that we're just copying too much from Singapore and we're doing it too little, too late. Green banking and green financing is another trendy and up-and-coming financial service which we should develop. Green banking and green financing cannot come at a more timely slot with Hong Kong's future role in the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, the AIIB. We would like to urge the government to take up this agenda with the central government so as to define more clearly our future role with AIIB. Of course, my honorable friend Charles Moore has dealt with fintech in his speech. Turning to a fourth challenge, the financial services sector comprised 16.1% of the GDP and employing 5.1% of the working population. Financial services is a high value-added industry. However, over-concentration in financial services is counterproductive, especially when Hong Kong is not a closed economy. Development in the real economy will complement and further boost development in the financial services center. Take an example, Hong Kong's goal to become a premier international shipping and aviation hub will boost and complement our future in aviation financing and ship financing. Another example, Mr. President, is our effort in developing industry using new and innovative technology in Hong Kong. This will no doubt create ample opportunities for private equity funding and green financing. Last but not least, human factor is always important. Experience from other cosmopolitans like New York and London told us that we do not need to concentrate too much on vocational training at the tertiary level at a too early a stage. Rather, it should come after our young people have made up their mind as to their choice of a career. We need people with good command of languages and broad general education. Vocational training can be more focused and come at a later stage. And I think this is the experience I get by talking to a lot of players in the industry. And I hope the government will take these into account in formulating a more comprehensive development direction of our financial services industry. Thank you, Mr. President.